On the third shift at Terra Space Control Center, the lights were dim and most officers were half dozing. Zara Knight, a brilliant but overworked communications specialist, nearly spilled her tea when a sudden frantic distress call appeared on her console. Static cut through the quiet hum of machinery. "This is Envoy Rokar of Zelan Prime," a distressed voice crackled through. "We are under siege by an unknown fleet calling itself the Aeon Dominion. Our planetary defenses are failing. If anyone is listening, we need help. Please." The audio cut out in a rush of static, replaced by a terrifying roar of explosions. Zara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. For the last 7 years, Earth had maintained cautious, peaceful relations with the Zelians. They were the first alien species to treat humanity as equals, encouraging cultural exchanges and scientific cooperation. Now they were on the brink of annihilation. With trembling fingers, Zara pressed the flashing red button labeled Emergency Alert. "Commander Baines," she said into her microphone, voice shaking, "we've got a catastrophic distress signal from Zelan Prime. They're being attacked right now." Within 30 minutes, the halls of Terra Space Control buzzed with voices, boots, and rattling gear. A crisis briefing was convened in the newly built Global Defense Summit Room, specially designed for emergencies of cosmic scale. Commander Rowan Baines, a tall, broad-shouldered man with graying hair, stood at the head of a long table, flanked by Earth's leading military and diplomatic figures. Zara replayed the distress signal, her words catching in her throat when the first shrieks echoed. Some people around the table blanched at the desperation in Envoy Rokar's voice. Grainy video feeds from advanced satellites showed Aeon Dominion warships blockading the orbit of Zelan Prime, bombarding cities and intercepting fleeing civilians. "How advanced is this Aeon Dominion?" asked Vice Admiral Soren Lee, known for his meticulous approach to threats. Zara's lips quivered as she responded, "From the images, far beyond anything we've seen. But the Zelians have always been a primarily peaceful race, focusing on research and medicine. They aren't built for full-scale war." Commander Baines leaned forward. "We owe it to them," he said, voice resonating with urgency. "They welcomed us into the galactic stage. Are we prepared to intervene?" Defense Minister Alora Reed, a steely-eyed woman whose experience spanned decades, spoke up. "Intervening means drawing the Aeon Dominion's wrath upon Earth. Their technology could devastate us. If we commit, we could be risking humanity's future." Zara balled her fists at her sides. "If we let them die without lifting a finger, we lose more than future trade or alliances. We lose our soul." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. An emergency vote was called among Earth's highest authorities. One by one, hands rose around the table. When it was unanimous, Commander Baines declared, "Mobilize the fleet. We stand with Zelan Prime." Earth's response force scrambled to assemble in orbit. The S-Vanguard, Earth's largest and most advanced flagship, led a small fleet of destroyers, support cruisers, and supply vessels. Scientists and diplomats from Earth's fledgling alliances pledged what they could, though most alien species were too afraid or disinterested to join in direct combat. Zara was transferred to the S Aurora, a specially outfitted stealth cruiser. Her job was to maintain communications and gather intelligence on the Aeon Dominion. While the ships readied for departure, she glanced at her reflection in a corridor window, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders stiff with both dread and a spark of hope. They were going to save friends or die trying. Over the next 2 days, the world held its breath. Families watched news feeds showing warships lifting off from Earth's orbital shipyards. On every continent, protests erupted both for and against the intervention, but the decision had already been made. Earth was at war with the Aeon Dominion. Lieutenant Sabine Kor, a brilliant pilot from the Luna colony, stood on the Aurora's bridge, reviewing infiltration routes through Dominion-held space. She spoke to Zara in hushed tones. "Satellite scans show heavy Aeon presence around Zelan Prime. They've deployed blockade squadrons. Our best chance is to slip in from the planet's night side, using partial cloak. Zara gave a tight nod. Let's hope the technology we've developed with the Zelians is enough to hide us. The first real test of Earth's resolve came 3 days later, as the fleet approached Zelian Prime. The planet's orbit was guarded by dozens of Dominion warships, sleek, dark vessels bristling with weaponry that glowed with an eerie violet light. In the main assault wave, the S-Vanguard led an advance charge, engaging the Dominion blockade in a storm of laser fire and energy torpedoes. Meanwhile, the Aurora, running silent and masked, slipped through a small gap in the Dominion's formation. Within the Aurora's cargo holds were hundreds of emergency stasis pods, medical supplies, and volunteer rescue teams. Captain Adrian Cross, the Aurora's commanding officer, addressed his crew over the intercom. Stay focused. We're here to evacuate as many Zelian civilians as we can. Our infiltration route is precarious, but if we manage it, we'll save thousands of lives. As the Aurora dove through the atmosphere, Zara watched on the monitors the horrifying images of Zelian cities ablaze. The Dominion's weaponry scorched tall crystalline spires, once the pride of Zelian architecture. Streams of terrified civilians fled on foot or in shuttles, only to be shot down by Dominion patrols. Commander, receiving a distress beacon from the Zelian Central Hospital in Talon City, Zara reported, her voice trembling. The city is under bombardment. Captain Cross closed his eyes for a second, made his decision, set course for Talon City. That's our priority. Landing the Aurora in Talon City's ruined outskirts was no small feat. Lieutenant Core navigated the swirling smoke and debris-laden skies with pinpoint precision. As soon as the landing ramps extended, rescue teams and medics rushed out, establishing triage stations in the half-collapsed hospital building. During the frantic evacuation, Zara helped usher scared families onto the ship's cargo decks. She felt a tug on her arm. A small Zelian child with large, watery eyes clung to her. "Why did no one else come?" he asked softly. "We asked everyone in the galaxy. Only you arrived." Zara knelt, placing a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "We humans might not be the strongest, but we won't stand by while good people suffer. That's a promise." Alarms shrieked overhead. Dominion ground units had detected the Aurora. Captain Cross barked orders. Defense teams, hold them off long enough to load the civilians. The Aurora soldiers, some newly trained, others seasoned veterans, took up positions behind ruined walls. They faced wave after wave of black-armored Aeon troopers, who advanced with unnerving discipline and superior firepower. It was a desperate scramble. Civilians poured into the Aurora's hold, many wounded or malnourished. The Dominion pressed in, nearly overrunning the perimeter. But just when it seemed hopeless, a wing of Earth's strike fighters roared overhead, strafing the enemy lines and buying the Aurora precious minutes to lift off. It was a minor miracle, but they had saved thousands of lives in one swift mission. Word of Earth's evacuation effort spread quickly across the stars. The Aeon Dominion began targeting Earth colonies, labeling humans as criminals and traitors to galactic order. Meanwhile, the galaxy, once indifferent, started to take notice. That small planet that no one had expected much from was risking everything to protect the defenseless. Back on Earth, the Global Defense Council convened a strategy session. Commander Baines, Admiral Lee, and Defense Minister Reed reviewed dozens of distress calls from smaller colonies harassed by Dominion fleets. "It's worse than we thought," said Admiral Lee, grim-faced. "The Aeon Dominion is waging systematic genocide. They aim to subjugate or eradicate any civilization they see as a threat." Defense Minister Reed clicked through data of bombed-out colonies. "We can't fight them alone. Our resources will be stretched too thin. We need allies. We need to unite the other species." It was easier said than done. The Thari Confederacy, a powerful but isolationist empire, refused to get involved, claiming neutrality. The Sora Enclave, an advanced race known for their starship technology, offered only medical supplies. and many others insisted that opposing the Aeon Dominion was too dangerous. Nevertheless, Earth's persistent moral stance began to sway a handful of smaller species who had also suffered under Aeon raids. A trickle of diplomatic overtures started arriving at Earth's newly expanded orbital station, Watchtower 1. Even among the Aeon Dominion ranks themselves, there were rumored defectors, individuals disillusioned by their leader's brutality. While battles raged on multiple fronts, research on Dominion technology accelerated. Dr. Abigail Marani, Earth's chief xenotechnologist, worked around the clock with Zelian scientists to analyze captured Aeon weapons. They found intricate crystalline energy cores that far outstripped Earth's own reactor designs. Zara Knight, recalled from the Aurora for a brief respite, assisted Dr. Marani in translating bits of Aeon code gleaned from captured gear. Their entire war strategy is built on intimidation, said Dr. Marani, pointing to lines of complex energy signatures. They rely on fear to keep systems in line, but if we can figure out how to disrupt their crystalline matrix, we could weaken their greatest strength, their shielding. For days they tested prototype devices in secure labs on Watchtower 1, each experiment a step closer to unraveling Aeon shield tech. Every success in the lab might mean fewer human lives lost on the battlefield. Finally, after weeks of trial, they discovered a unique oscillation frequency that could destabilize Aeon shields, given the right conditions. Commander Baines authorized immediate production of frequency disruptors, small ship-mounted modules that could exploit the discovered vulnerabilities. The plan, though, was far from foolproof. Direct confrontation would still be costly. But at least now Earth and her allies had a fighting chance. As soon as frequency disruptors came off the production line, a task force led by Captain Jiro Alden was dispatched to Xanthi Outpost, a remote Earth installation orbiting a mineral-rich asteroid belt. The Dominion had begun staging attacks against it, threatening to cut off Earth's supply lines. Zara Knight, reassigned to the S. Aurora, arrived at Xanthi Outpost with the new disruptors in tow. The Aeon ships came fast, outnumbering Earth's defenders 5-1. Captain Alden addressed his small force will lure them into a pincer formation, then activate the disruptors at close range. Stay vigilant. The first volley from the Dominion hammered Earth's frigates, forcing them back. Then, in a carefully orchestrated move, the Aurora and 2 Allied corvettes darted in, locked disruptor beams onto the lead Aeon cruiser, and fired. For a moment, the Aeon shielding shimmered, then collapsed, revealing hull plating that took direct hits from Earth's weapons. A massive explosion shredded the cruiser's midsection. Seeing one of their top ships destroyed so quickly caused Dominion captains to hesitate. The rest of the Aeon squadron retreated, and Xanthi Outpost was saved. Although only a small victory, it proved the disruptors worked. The news spread quickly, emboldening more species to step forward and help. Enraged by Earth's growing alliances and new weapons, the Aeon Dominion unleashed a series of brutal counterattacks. They targeted vulnerable human colonies on Mars, Europa, and the orbital habitats near Saturn. Civilians huddled in bunkers as Dominion battleships rained destruction. On Mars, the Red Rise colony found itself surrounded by Aeon ground forces. Major Tristan Volk of Earth's Marine Corps led a hastily assembled defense of miners, scientists, and settlers. Over open comms, he demanded Earth reinforcements. Admiral Lay responded by dispatching the S Vanguard and a group of Allied cruisers to break the siege. The fight for Red Rise was ferocious. Aeon mechs pounded colony walls while Earth Marines and Allied volunteers, including a small group of Zelian troopers, fought street by street. Civilians raced to underground bunkers. The colony nearly fell multiple times. Finally, an Earth-Zelian joint unit managed to disable the Aeon command node controlling the mechs. Dominion ground forces, abruptly leaderless, staggered. The Vanguard seized the opening to push them off Mars entirely. Though battered, Red Rise colony survived. Across the solar system, Similar stories played out. People stood firm, fueled by the knowledge they were fighting not just for themselves, but for everyone terrorized by the Dominion. Earth's staunch resistance to Aeon aggression began to shift the galactic mood. Neutral species started sharing resources. A handful of smaller polities, long oppressed by the Dominion, offered to join forces if Earth could prove a real chance of victory. Jennifer Cole, a veteran diplomat, organized a historic summit on Watchtower 1, inviting all spacefaring civilizations. Many delegates arrived with reservations, but images of Earth's battered colonies and tales of heroic rescues from Zelan Prime moved hearts. Dr. Mirani's demonstration of the disruptor technology further convinced them. Still, some remained unconvinced. Representatives from the Thari Confederacy scoffed, "If you corner the Aeon Dominion, they'll only respond with escalated force. We cannot risk it." But from the back of the chamber, a quiet voice spoke. It was Ambassador Triel, a defector from the Aeon Dominion. "I risked everything to come here," Triel said softly. "Many among the Dominion's own people wish to end this cycle of bloodshed. If you show them the possibility of real unity, they may lay down arms. But if you yield now, the Dominion's fear tactics will only grow." Slowly, more heads nodded. By the summit's conclusion, Earth gained new pledges of support from 7 different species. A united front was beginning to form. Now that Earth's alliance was gathering strength, the Aeon Dominion attempted a grand offensive to break their momentum. Dominion fleets attacked multiple systems simultaneously, forcing Earth and her allies to scatter their forces to protect dozens of worlds. On Zelan Prime, a Dominion blockade once again threatened the major cities. This time, a mix of Terran, Zelan, and newly allied Korean ships arrived, using the disruptors to punch holes in the Dominion's defenses. Civilians who had once lived in terror felt a renewed sense of hope as the Allied fleet forced the Dominion to retreat. On the far side of Earth's territory, the Dominion launched a surprise raid on the Sora Enclave. The Sora, who had contributed only indirectly to the war, found their orbital shipyards under siege. In response, the Enclave formally joined the alliance, sending their advanced cruisers into the fight. Their distinctive silver hulls bristled with cutting-edge rail cannons, turning Aeon ships into cosmic debris. Yet, every victory brought heavy losses. The Aeon Dominion never gave ground without exacting a painful toll. News channels across Earth and allied worlds showed images of destroyed ships, entire cities reduced to rubble, and rows of casualties returning home in flag-draped coffins. Support for the war remained firm, but a somber darkness settled in the hearts of many. No one emerged from these battles unscathed. During a lull in the fighting, a coded transmission reached the Aurora. Lieutenant Kor's eyes widened as she read it. "Commander Baines, we have an incoming message from inside Dominion territory. They're requesting a secret meeting." It was from General Carrix, a high-ranking Aeon officer apparently disillusioned by the Dominion's atrocities. He offered critical intel. The Dominion's main fortress world, Chrysalis, held the seat of Aeon power, including the command network that controlled their empire-wide communications and drones. If the Allies could disable that network, the Dominion war effort would fragment. The Allies approached the message with extreme caution. Could it be a trap? Still, Earth's leadership, along with Ambassador Triel, felt they had to take the risk. A covert team was dispatched to a neutral outpost to meet General Carrix. Zara Knight volunteered as a liaison, her linguistic abilities crucial for verifying Aeon codes. In a dimly lit station room on Outpost Farina, Zara came face to face with General Carrix, a tall Aeon with dark, angular armor. He removed his helmet, revealing silver-toned skin and weary eyes. "I did not come here to beg for mercy," Carrix said, voice trembling. "But I can no longer serve a regime that murders entire worlds. I will give you the codes to breach the Chrysalis network. End this war before more innocents suffer." Zara studied his face, searching for deceit. Something about his desperation felt real. "Thank you," she finally said. "If we can bring this war to a quicker end, that will save lives, yours included." Carrick's left quickly, returning to Dominion space as if he had never been gone. Meanwhile, the Allies gained vital intel that could tip the scales. Armed with Carrick's codes and Dr. Mirani's disruptor technology, the Allies prepared their boldest plan yet, Operation Stormbreak, a direct assault on Chrysalis to cripple the Dominion from within. The goal? Knock out the Dominion's central command node, forcing them to negotiate or face total collapse. An enormous Allied fleet gathered near a star system just outside Aeon space, over 600 warships from over a dozen civilizations. Each race contributed its own strengths: human determination, Zelian stealth, Corian shock troops, Sora's state-of-the-art artillery, and so on. Tension rippled through the staging area. Crews said tearful goodbyes in case this was their last mission. Medical stations prepared for a flood of casualties. Diplomats hovered nervously, hoping the plan would lead to victory, not cosmic annihilation. Commander Rowan Baines took command of the S-Vanguard, leading the main assault. The Aurora, with Captain Cross, Lieutenant Core, and Zara Knight, was tasked with deploying a specialized infiltration team onto Chrysalis itself to upload the override codes. The plan hinged on them. When the Allied fleet warped into the Chrysalis system, they found the Dominion waiting. Thousands of Aeon warships, dark, looming silhouettes bristling with weapon pods, stretched across the planet's orbit. A single voice broadcast in Aeon: "Speak over all frequencies. You stand on sacred ground of the Aeon Dominion. Surrender, and we may spare your pitiful worlds." Commander Baines gave a cold, clear reply: "We've come to end this war. The galaxy will not kneel to fear." The largest space battle in known history erupted. Streams of blue, green, and violet energy tore across the void. Massive carriers on both sides launched fighter wings. Battleships lined up for broadside attacks, lasers carving through hull plating. Allied disruptors flared repeatedly, shattering Aeon shields in coordinated strikes. From the Aurora's vantage point, Zara Knight relayed real-time data to Allied vessels, orchestrating a delicate dance of formation. Captain Cross maneuvered expertly, weaving through Aeon lines to keep the infiltration route open. Across the comm channels, bursts of desperate chatter mingled with victory shouts when an Aeon behemoth finally exploded in a brilliant flash. Amid the chaos, the infiltration shuttle launched from the Aurora, carrying a joint human Zelian Corian strike team. Lieutenant Core piloted it down toward Chrysalis's surface through raging anti-air fire. Zara accompanied them, heart pounding as flaming debris streaked across the alien sky. Chrysalis's surface was harsh, a rocky, windswept planet dominated by towering Aeon fortresses. The infiltration team landed near a hidden maintenance shaft that General Carrick's intel had pinpointed. They had minutes before patrols converged. Sergeant Kira Bishop, a Terran commando, led the squad into the complex's labyrinthine corridors. Zelian scouts used their advanced scanning abilities to avoid security drones. Corian heavy gunners covered the rear, ready to unleash their powerful plasma cannons on any Aeon troopers. As they approached the control core, an alarm blared, red lights pulsing. Aeon soldiers in black armor streamed from side hallways. Gunfire and energy bolts lit the darkness. The Allies pressed forward, forging a path through the chaos, each species using its unique skill to keep the group moving. Zara clutched a handheld device containing the override codes. The entire plan depended on her installing them into Aeon systems. At last they breached the final chamber, a colossal room housing a towering crystalline structure, pulsing with purple luminescence. This was the Aeon Central Nexus, controlling everything from the Dominion's drone fleets to FTL communications. Sergeant Bishop snapped to Zara, "Now's your moment." Zara dashed to the central console, hooking her device into Aeon ports, her hands shaking as she typed. For a moment, the codes refused to interface. Then, a click. Lines of Aeon script flickered, She could almost sense the entire Dominion network shudder as the override took hold. Blinding light erupted from the crystal structure, arcs of purple energy dancing overhead. Aeon reinforcements poured in, desperate to halt the infiltration. The team formed a last-ditch defensive circle around Zara, holding off the onslaught in a furious firefight. High above Chrysalis, the space battle raged on, each side losing ships by the dozen. Then, in a single moment, Aeon vessels faltered. Their capital ships lost centralized coordination, fighters drifted aimlessly as if their command signals vanished. Some Aeon captains tried to re-establish manual control, but it was too little, too late. The Allies seized the advantage. Commander Baines broadcast on all frequencies, "Aeon Dominion forces, your network is compromised. Stand down and surrender or face total destruction." Some Aeon ships continued fighting, driven by fanatic loyalty. But others went silent, drifting away from the battlefield or even turning to aid the Allies, following rogue captains who believed the war was unjust. The Dominion was fracturing. On the ground, the infiltration team prepared for a suicidal last stand. Aeon soldiers advanced in overwhelming numbers, seeking to destroy the intruders and retake the Nexus. Sergeant Bishop shouted, "We've done our part, Knight. Let's get out alive if we can." Zara, panting, confirmed the override was fully uploaded. The Aeon Nexus was now under Allied control, but the console was going critical from the disruption. "We need to evacuate," now she yelled. They fought their way back through corridors brimming with Aeon resistance. Just before emerging from the fortress, a final wave of Dominion troopers attacked with savage desperation. Quarian heavy gunners unleashed plasma bursts that scorched the walls, Zelian scouts sniped from vantage points, and Terran commandos charged with grenades and rifles. When the last Aeon trooper fell, the battered infiltration team raced across the fortress courtyard to their shuttle. Lieutenant Kor slammed the hatch shut, engines roaring to life. Seconds later, an enormous explosion consumed the fortress behind them as the destabilized Nexus collapsed in a thunderous quake. The Allied fleet, battered but victorious, controlled the skies over Chrysalis. With the Dominion's main command node destroyed, Aeon morale crashed. Fleets across the galaxy began to surrender en masse. A handful of extremist admirals vowed to fight to the death, but they became isolated pockets of resistance rather than a unified threat. On Earth, celebration and mourning mingled. Billions watched as returning heroes disembarked warships, many with visible scars and haunted eyes. They had fought for a just cause and won. But the cost was staggering, countless lives lost across dozens of worlds, entire cities needing reconstruction. The war might be over, but the work was just beginning. In the following weeks, representatives from over 20 species convened an emergency summit, this time on Zelian Prime, in the partially rebuilt capital city. Once bombed-out spires rose anew, testament to the resilience shared by all. They gathered around a circular table to sign the founding charter of the Galactic Accord, establishing mutual defense, open trade, and humanitarian cooperation. Commander Rowan Baines, stepping aside from active duty, addressed the assembly. "We once believed humanity was alone, overshadowed by stronger, older civilizations. We learned that the measure of a people isn't just their technology or power. It's their willingness to stand for what's right, even against impossible odds." Zara Knight attended the ceremony as part of Earth's diplomatic corps, still shocked at how far they had come. She gazed at the variety of faces, Zelians with shimmering skin, the tall, proud Quarians, the slender, silver-eyed Sora, and even Aeon defectors. Together, they had forged unity out of the fires of war. An official from the Sora enclave read aloud, "Let this day mark the dawn of a galaxy where no voice goes unheard, where no world stands alone. May we heal from the scars inflicted by the Aeon Dominion and ensure that such terror never rises again." Months after the fighting ceased, reclamation projects reached every corner of once ravaged planets. Earth's horizon was dotted with new starports built in collaboration with alien engineers. On Zelan Prime, scientists worked side by side with humans in advanced medical labs, perfecting treatments that could save billions across the galaxy. The Aeon Dominion, now a shadow of its former self, underwent a turbulent transition. Some loyalists fled to uncharted regions, others stayed to rebuild a more peaceful society, aided by the newly formed Galactic Accord. Interspecies friendship committees replaced propaganda machines, and peacekeeping forces monitored remaining Dominion strongholds to prevent further hostilities. Zara Knight found herself in a new role, coordinating relief efforts across the star lanes. She visited orphaned children on distant colonies, bringing them supplies and encouraging them to believe in a brighter future. Every time she saw hope light up their eyes, she felt the sacrifices of the war had meant something. In time, the galaxy came to regard Earth with respect, not just as a minor player, but as a people who had risked everything for justice. Songs were written on Korean worlds about Terran bravery, and the Sora dedicated new starship designs in honor of Earth's unwavering spirit. And so the galaxy moved forward, forging a legacy of cooperation from the embers of a devastating war. Through ashes and destruction, one simple truth rang clear: the strongest bonds are built not on fear or conquest, but on compassion and resolve. Where once only darkness loomed, new alliances shone like beacons in the star-filled void, guiding every world toward a future where they stood together, united in hope and ready to defend the light they had all fought so hard to protect.